So I just had a very, very long break over the holidays, and it got me thinking about, routines and habits, because when I was on this break, I just like completely kind of stepped out of my normal rhythm. And I know this kind of sounds boring, but I promise this episode will be interesting. Well, I can't promise, but just stick around, okay? Here's the thing. There are good habits and there are bad habits. And your habits eventually turn into your routine. And your routine eventually turns into your life. Crazy how that works, right? So stick with me here. Today, I really want to explore how habits and routines affect the overall quality of our lives. And that may sound dramatic, but I have a feeling you'll understand what I mean by the time we reach the end of this episode, okay? So we might as well just jump right in. All right, babe? So here we go. When I think of routine, I really think about what my day-to-day looks like during the week. Because, once we get to the weekend, that shit gets fucked. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what happens, but I just completely drive off the beaten path. Like, there's just no sense of routine on the weekends, because it's just like, I don't have to adult. So I'm not going to do my routine. I do that all week, But here's the thing. I have grown to seriously love my day-to-day routines throughout my week, because there's just something about that consistency and that continuous schedule that just makes life feel a lot more manageable. Because there was a time when I didn't really prioritize anything throughout my routine. And here's the thing about a solid routine. You have to include things that enhance your day to day, So scrolling on your phone first thing in the morning is probably not going to set yourself up for a great day. And trust me, I know, because I literally used to do this every morning. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't do it every once in a while. But it just doesn't really set up your day for it to be successful or enjoyable or however you want to label it. But you see what I'm saying? You have to be intentional about how you utilize your routine so that in turn it becomes this positive, continuous practice and not a negative one. Because if I drank 5 shots of Fireball every day, my quality of life when I zoom out would probably not look so good, So what is it that you incorporate into your day-to-day? Or do you have things that you do every day or every week that enhance your life when you zoom out? And here's the thing. I don't think people realize that, Even though we live in this shitty, trapped lifestyle, this 9-to-5 lifestyle, you guys know I could talk shit about this all day, right? So even though we live in this annoying lifestyle, I think people fail to realize that those little itty bitty things that we do in our lives actually add up to the bigger picture, right? And so I am going to bring up a pretty deep personal story of mine because I feel like it's relevant to this topic today. And I've been vocal about this on my personal social accounts and my blog and in some of my music. And I might have even talked about this a little bit on my podcast at some point, but not to this extent, I feel like. So here we are. No time like the present. I do want to put a trigger warning on this story because I do talk about addiction and depression and anxiety. So just if you're not in a space to hear that right now, it's okay to leave this episode and come back another time when you're ready. I just wanted to put a PSA out there because it can be a little heavy, this story. So here we go. Story time. In 2022, I reached probably the lowest part of my life that I've experienced thus far. And I want to give you guys a little bit of a POV, okay? I'm bringing it back actually to 2021. I had just graduated college, and I had just got my first big girl job. Woo! Yay! Although it didn't really feel like it because I was working at the same place I internshiped at and in the same town as my college. So, at the time, I was definitely grateful for it for sure. But there was a part of me that just really felt behind because I was looking at all my peers and they were, getting these really awesome jobs in these big cities, or, they were moving back home and finding a place to work there. And here I was, working at a nonprofit that wasn't salary based or nothing, and that really bruised my ego, obviously. I was feeling like the off-brand version of all my peers, like I was sitting out here fucking representing Walmart and Jessica's representing Louis Vuitton like she's worn it her whole fucking life. Bad analogy. I'm just saying that's how it felt, right? And the shitty part is that I didn't even make enough money. Surprise, surprise. Nobody does, I feel like, when you first get out of college, besides the point. So I had to pick up another job. Yay! Had to pick up another job bartending. So now I was working 50 plus hours a week just to pay my bills. I really just became so wrapped up in this lifestyle of go to work, go to work, go to work, that this just became my life. And I think the biggest and hardest part was just that overall transition from college into the real world. Because fuck, dude, all you know is going to school. Like literally that's all you know. So then when you get out into the real world, it's like, what the fuck are we doing? And the other issue for me personally is like when I got out of college, I was still drinking like I was in college. And not a lot of people talk about that piece in the transition because fuck, that shit is hard and it moves so fast. And when you're going through it, it's just so terrifying. Like when I graduated and I started working 40 hours a week and then another 10 plus on top of that, I was like, what the fuck? I feel like I'm 5 years old. Okay? Like, what am I doing? Am I doing this right? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? How the fuck did I get here? You know what I mean? Like, I'm only good at being 22. What? I don't know what this means. How do you be an adult? What the fuck do you do? Fucking 9 months ago, I was getting trashed at a house party. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? The other thing is that drinking in college is just so normalized. Like, seriously, it's like a rite of passage or something. You got to black out every weekend, 3 days in a row, because that's just what you fucking do. I don't know. And that shit is crazy. Just to give you another POV, okay? My college, middle of nowhere USA, babe. Okay? Fucking cornfields. We had maybe 2 bars, all right? And so that's what we did, okay? We just fucking drank. But you get what I'm getting at, okay? So now I want to fast forward back to me entering adulthood, okay? And being in this same small college town, literally having no money and working these 2 jobs. I was miserable because I felt like I had nothing to do outside of making money. So what did I do? I drank. And unfortunately, once I started working at this bar, which I did really, really like, I don't want that to be misconstrued because bartending is actually a lot of fun and I met a lot of really great people and it was a lot of fun. However, the atmosphere, unfortunately, encouraged me to drink more. I was just around it all the time. And then eventually I started surrounding myself with people who were drinking all the time. And that became my company. So I didn't really have friends who didn't drink. And it was like every time we hung out, that's what we did. It was like we knew drinking was going to be involved. And it wasn't just like light drinking. It was like we're getting fucked up and we're getting trashed. And that's what's happening. There wasn't this like, hey, let's go out for one drink, talk about our lives. Nope. It was, hey, let's go out and have 5 shots and get fucking wasted. Like, that was the vibe. And it really eventually just kind of spiraled out of control for me to the point where I was drinking every single day, literally every single day. And deep down, I knew that I had a problem, but I just like didn't really want to admit it. And I think I was also just in this acceptance of like, this is what my life is now. Like, I'm just going to be this way because life is shitty and life is terrible. And why wouldn't I just do this to forget all my problems and forget that the world is shitty? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't I just do that? And I think also there were a lot of other contributing factors that I was facing during this specific time in my life. 2021 through 2022 was just such a big transitional year, like those 2 years specifically, because there was a lot of things that were going on in my personal life with my family that I was away from, that I felt like I had no control over because I was living out of state and away from them and everything that was happening. I was transitioning into adulthood where I was, learning how to live on my own and pay my own bills and, work 40 hours a week. So there was just a lot of adjusting, and when your life is moving that fast, it can be really, really hard to catch up. I feel like, I don't know. It was like, I felt like I was constantly running to catch up to my life is what it felt like. And so there was just a lot of things I think that contributed to my unhealthy relationship with drinking. And the thing about a substance like alcohol is that when you consume it enough, your body starts relying on this substance so much so that like your body literally feels like it cannot function without it. I became so addicted to alcohol that like when I wasn't drinking, I was so fucking anxious, and I was like tunnel visioned and paranoid, and it was terrifying. It was a horrible feeling. Like, think of the most scared you have ever been. That's what it felt like when I wasn't consuming alcohol. Like, I literally was just so terrified for my life, and I have no idea why. And that's like the best way I think that I can describe it. And the shittiest part about all of this, I can a little bit laugh about it now because it's my story, but when I was going through all this, I was working at a nonprofit that literally helped people with substance use and mental health challenges. And so the crazy thing is that I had support and I could have reached out to people. I think I just got so good at hiding it. And the one thing about me is that I can be very prideful when it comes to how I'm doing, how I'm doing mentally, physically. I don't like to let people know that I'm hurting because I don't want to be a burden. I really won't let anybody know until I finally break. So anyways, the reason that I'm sharing this story with you all is because this was a prime example of how my unhealthy habits turned into a routine that led me to a very, very dark place in my life, and I was stagnant. If anything, I was going downhill, I wasn't moving forward. I was just existing in this space where my routine became go to work, drink, go to work, drink. And I didn't really have anything outside of that. And when I zoomed out and I looked at my life, I was like, holy shit, my life is ass, Fuck. And again, like I can laugh about it now and I don't want to dim it down because it was, a very dark time in my life, but it also changed me for the better. And it actually took a major life event for me to really shift my perspective and pull myself out of that space. I'd love to share with you this major life event. However, I feel like I have hit my max vulnerability level for today, so we'll save that for a story for another time. Anyways, that took place, and I remember calling my dad and said, I don't give a fuck what you say. Like, I'm coming home. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a very long time, and I need to come home. And you can imagine how bruised my ego felt that I, at 22 years old, was going back home to live with my parents. Yay. However, what I didn't realize then was that decision would set the foundation of my healing and lead me to the balanced and healthy lifestyle that I'm living today. So, gotta be grateful for myself for doing that. And that really kind of leads me, I think, into this next point, and that is the maintenance of a healthy routine. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Is it maintenance or maintenance? Or are those two separate words? I'm not really sure. I'm going to use maintenance, and it's probably wrong, but that's okay because you understand what I'm saying, right? Okay, here we go. This shit is definitely not easy, dude. In maintenance, there's a whole hell of a lot of shit that comes before actually maintaining a healthy, stable routine, okay? I recently listened to this audiobook not too long ago about the power of consistency. I think that's the literal title of the book, and I gotta look up I gotta see who this author is. Let's see. Pause. Okay. Okay, Weldon Long, I think. Anyway, in this book, he talks about how all those micro habits that you have throughout your day actually add up to the bigger story. Kind of like what I was saying before, right? So those little itty bitty things that you don't think affect you, they do. They really, really do. But the maintenance of these habits, I don't fucking know which word it is. Whatever. I just feel like I'm saying it wrong. Okay. But the maintenance of these habits can be extremely difficult. I want to use an analogy to kind of like make sense of this next point. Okay. So take muscle memory, for example. You build muscle memory by engaging in the same activity to eventually build that steady, stable connection. Or take a volleyball player, for example. An outside hitter is going to have a lot more muscle memory in their arm swing than, say, a libero, because they're constantly partaking in that motion. Do you get what I'm saying? So now let's apply that to real life. Incorporating little things in your day-to-day eventually build that muscle memory as long as you stay consistent with it, right? If you roll out of bed every morning right before you're supposed to leave for work, you're training your body and your mind to rush into your day. But if you wake up a few hours before you leave and prioritize spending intentional time with yourself, whatever that is to you, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's going to work out, maybe it's making yourself breakfast, whatever it is for you, that then allows you to train your mind and your body that these things matter to you. And the more you are consistent, the easier it becomes to do every day. And then it becomes a habit, right? And that eventually turns into your routine. Do you get what I'm saying? So maintenance is tricky because you have to do it on the days that you don't want to do it. And ironically, those are the days that you need it the most, babe. Like, seriously. To reach maintenance, you have to be consistent. And to be consistent, you have to be disciplined. When I moved back home the end of summer in 2022, I had to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I forced myself to show up to the gym 4 to 5 times a week. I made sure that I woke up before my obligations to prioritize my mental health. And gradually, my life started to feel a little bit more manageable. It started to feel a little bit more worth it. Whereas before, when I had all these negative habits, my quality of life just felt shitty, dude. And now, flash forward to 2026, I feel like I'm reaching that maintenance phase where I don't just prioritize my routine and habits, I live it, dude. I've built that muscle memory to get up and meditate every morning and to go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week and to do these little itty bitty things that when I do zoom out, I can be proud of that life. I can be proud of the life that I'm building. So maintenance doesn't come until you learn how to be consistent. And consistency doesn't come until you learn how to be disciplined. Creating healthy habits and routines don't come the first time you try to switch something up. It's gradual. And you need time to fully see the results of your adaptation. Okay? Period. Mic drop. End of episode. Just kidding. We have one more point here. The last thing that I want to talk about is the importance of not putting so much pressure on ourselves. I think in today's society, there is an oversaturation of what a healthy lifestyle looks like, if that makes sense. And I literally probably say this every fucking episode, but like when we consume so much media every single fucking day, we start to compare our lifestyles to whoever we're seeing online. And that can make us feel really shitty about ourselves. Like, fuck, I'm not consuming 40 grams of protein every day. I must be a fuck up. And like, let's just chill, okay? Let's just chill on the whole protein thing. Like, what is this protein trend? I mean, like, seriously, do we need to put protein in coffee? Like, coffee already tastes like shit, bro. We don't need to be adding protein to this shit, okay? Here's the thing. All of us want what we don't have to some capacity or another. Maybe it's a certain lifestyle. Maybe it's a certain special someone. Maybe it's this ideal body type. Whatever it is, okay? We all kind of have that desire. And unfortunately, that is a really unrealistic way to live because it takes you out of the present moment. And you're not able to really appreciate what you have when you have it. Okay, I'll give you a prime example of this. 2016 is trending right now. Hello. I was looking back at old pictures of myself when I was a fetus. I literally was 16 years old, okay? And I was like, oh my God, I was so cute. I was fucking tiny. I'm this tiny ass little high schooler, you know? I'm like, oh my God, she's so cute. I love her. And I literally remember thinking at the time, like, oh my God, I need to lose weight. Oh my God, why do I look like this? Like, I'm so much bigger than all the girls at my school. Hello? I was a fucking twig, okay? And the point that I'm trying to make is that we put so much pressure on ourselves to live a certain lifestyle or, you know, have this perfect body or whatever it is, right? We put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve that. And it's like, for what, you know? Everyone has to start somewhere on the path to whatever it is that we want to try to achieve. And that doesn't mean that you need to change everything about your life all at once. It's okay to just do one thing at a time. You know? We don't fucking need to be switching everything up all the time or all at once. We don't need to be doing that. Because here's the thing. It's way too hard to completely shift your whole entire lifestyle when you've gotten so used to operating from a certain way. Do you get what I'm saying? Like for me, when I finally did move back and start over, I didn't incorporate all this shit that I'm doing now all at once because I wouldn't have been able to do it, dude. When I got home, I just focused on one thing at a time. I was like, okay, I'm going to work out Monday through Friday, and that's what I'm going to focus on doing. That's where I'm going to put my focus, and that's what I'm going to do. And then once I got into the rhythm of that, I was like, okay, now let's start meal prepping. Let's start prioritizing my food that I'm eating. And then after that, I was like, okay, now that I have that down, let's start practicing meditation. And again, so this was just very gradual. And when I separated where I wanted to be from where I was currently, it got a lot easier because I just broke it down. And I gave myself grace and allowed myself that time to get to where I eventually wanted to be. And even now, 3 years later, yes, I am so proud of myself for how far I've come and the work that I've put in to get to this place of maintenance. But at the same time, I'm still not where I want to be. But what I realized is that I don't need to put all this pressure on myself, you know? Success or the things that we want don't necessarily need to have a destination because There's always going to be more that we want or more that we want to achieve. Does that make sense? So in the end, we don't need to put all this pressure on ourselves to get somewhere. Okay? Let's just focus on the one thing that might help us get to whatever vision that we're trying to create for our lives, right? And it's okay. It's okay to slow down. I feel like people need to hear that. Like, people need to hear that it's okay to slow down. We don't need to feel like we have it all figured out at 22. Like, it's okay. It's okay to slow down and take a break and be like, wait a minute, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing and how the fuck did I get here? I don't know what I'm doing. And that's okay. That's okay, babe. So just know that you have time. I saw this meme the other day that really just stuck with me, and I thought it was such a good example of what I needed to hear in this moment, okay? So me being 26 right now, right? I saw this meme and it said, it's okay, you're not behind. Everybody and Friends in the very first season were just turning 26. You know what I'm saying? In the first season of Friends, in the first season of Big Bang Theory, in the first season of New Girl, right? Like, just because you're not married and you don't have a kid and you don't own a house, okay, does not mean that you are behind. It does not mean that. Everybody is on their own journey and it's okay to slow down. So I think I'm done. I think I've reached the end of what I wanted to talk about today. Habits and routines really do affect the quality of your life. And sometimes you really just have to zoom out to see that perspective and look at your day-to-day. And if your day-to-day is like how mine was, go to work, drink, go to work, drink, go to work, your quality of life is not going to be what you want it to be. I guess my advice to all of you guys out there is to just take it day by day. You know what I mean? Like, break things down, add those little bitty changes into your life that gradually will help you to see what life is really about. You can't build maintenance until you build consistency. And you can't build consistency until you build discipline. That would be my advice. I don't know if that's making sense. And I feel like by the time I get to the end of an episode, I'm like, I literally have no more to talk about. And I think I've said everything I need to fucking say. So why am I still talking? I don't know. So I think that's all I have for you guys today. And I had fun today. So I will see you guys next week. And thanks for tuning in. Bye.